You should not start a new Stranded profile, and this is why. I've spent over 2,000 hours in Stranded, and you're gonna want to trust me on this. The last reason is probably the most important, so make sure to stick around until the end. Also, I'm getting really close to 4,000 subscribers, so make sure you subscribe. My dream is YouTube rank, maybe one day. Also, go join the Discord. I'm trying to pass Buckles in the counting channel. His is at 62k, we're at like 12k. We got this. Anyways, let's get on to the video. So the first reason is it has not been updated since the release, basically. So it was released in, say, January or February or so. So it's been like 10 or 11 months. And they're not going to release any updates for Stranded anytime soon. So there's not going to be anything new to the game. So once you reach the end of the game, that's just it. You're just done, right? Second of all, there's just a lot less content than the main game. Stranded is a lot smaller than regular Skyblock, so you run out of fun things to do and explore way faster, and it becomes just grindy, repetitive, a lot quicker than normal Skyblock, so it can be very demotivating for new players. The third reason is it is completely impossible to catch up to other players. If you ever want to be a top player, just don't. Nope, you can't do that. Don't even think about it. Most people play casually, but this still affects them as well. For example, you used to get hyper catalysts by killing special zealots because you could get them from zealot minions, which is you got from placing a summoning eye in an enderman minion. But now those don't spawn anymore, so the special drops from the special zealots just aren't a thing anymore, like crystal fragments, which are used to make hyper catalysts, which make minions give 4 times the drops. They also dropped things like enchanted obsidian, enchanted endstone, enchanted ender pearls, enchanted eye of ender, but you can't get those from those minions anymore, therefore making them completely useless. On top of that, people spent a lot of time building huge mob farms just for them to become completely useless. You used to be able to build a giant mob farm and then things from the end like watchers and obsidian protectors would spawn and they would fall to their death and drop their loot. It was pretty cool. The admins made it so that for a mob to drop its loot, it has to be killed by a player. And so to get those drops, a player has to kill the mob, and it just makes those giant mob farms completely useless, worthless. You get the point. The fourth reason is that the community is tiny, for a good reason, by the way. If you need any help progressing in the game or getting any advice, there's just like nobody to help you. There's a Stranded Discord where people don't really talk about Stranded that much. Half of the people quit Stranded and don't even talk about it, and they're just like normal players or Iron Man players, and it's not that active of a Discord compared to what it used to be. On top of that, if you ask any of like the top players who play, if you're a new player, they won't even give you any advice. They'll just say, don't play the game because it's in such a bad state right now. Me included. Whenever people ask me about advice or to make an early game guide, I just say, no, I'm not going to do that. Just don't play the game. This is the last, final, and most important reason. This kind of goes off the third reason, but these are more important things. Is that some really important items are either way harder to obtain now or just completely impossible. Things like the mob farm and hyper catalysts are a mild inconvenience because all that does is save you a little bit of time, but some things are just completely unobtainable. For example, the soul whip is one of the best weapons in Stranded, but you can no longer get it because the spooky mobs that drop the soul fragments just don't spawn and you can't get the chests, so you just can't get the soul fragments, and so it's just completely impossible to get. On top of that, there's nether collections where if you had the item placed down before the nether update, which was months and months ago, you can get the collection. So if you had an old desert island, you could get red sand collection, and that's some free Skyblock XP, but that's not that big, whatever. There is mycelium though. If you had that before the nether update, you can place it down, it will spread to dirt, and you can get basically infinite mycelium, and you can get the collection completely maxed out. So in terms of things like Skyblock levels, that's just completely broken. That is 9 collection tiers that other players cannot get. But I only said 9. There's actually a lot more. Because of Mycelium, you can get the upgrade where it turns minion mobs into corrupted mobs if you just have a little bit of sulfur from magma fishing, which by the way is using a bug and it's the only way to magma fish, and you can't even get the mobs from the freaking Nether Island. You can only get the ones from the Crystal Hollows. But you can still get magma fish, and so you can get a corrupted rod, and after hours and hours, you can get sulfur, and then after that, you can get infinite sulfur collection, but only if you have Mycelium. So, if you have Mycelium, you can get infinite sulfur collection, and therefore, you can get the freaking implosion belt, which by the way, makes the best weapon in Stranded, the Yeti sword, 25% better, because it affects the Yeti sword, and the Yeti sword is by far the best DPS in the game, and the only way to kill tier 4 Endermen. Yeah, it's a bit broken. And that's not even the most important thing that you can't get. Like, that makes tier 4 Endermen a lot harder, and you get a lot less Skyblock XP, but on top of that, the builder is completely unobtainable because it needs every single collection in the game, and guess what I just said? The Nether collections, they're not obtainable. So, you can't buy things like saplings, which make foraging 3 times faster. You can't buy flowers, which means you can just buy flower minion to tier 11. You actually have to place a flower minion down for like 3 months. And you can buy a lot of things like obsidian and other things which are really useful from the builder, but you just can't do that. The most important thing though, is they made redstone impossible to get. Normally, you would go and you would kill a redstone pigman, but guess what the admins somehow screwed up? Redstone pigman. They made it so that redstone pigmen simply do not spawn. I don't know how they can mess that up. But you know what also dropped from redstone pigmen? Gold. And so that is 2 collections which you basically can't get. Redstone is super useful because there's your accessory bag. Without redstone, you can't even have an accessory bag, so good luck with talismans, so good luck dealing any damage. Compactors, your minions will fill up in 2 seconds and you can't do any farming because you can't have a personal compactor. And with gold, technically it's not completely unobtainable, and it's not that useful, but it is useful for some things, like golden wolf teeth and EXP shares, which are very useful, but you can't get that until combat level 24, which is when golden ghouls start spawning. And if you think somebody who doesn't even have redstone is gonna go all the way to combat 24 to get gold, yeah, I think you're a little insane. So, it's just completely stupid, dude. It's so frustrating. The game mode is completely unplayable, especially for new players. For older players, it's kind of playable because we can just farm, because we already have the farms built and we already have personal compactors. We can get coins, I guess, we can do some slayers, but like, what do we do when we max that out? Like, for example, I have mining left, which is either sitting on diamond minions for 400 hours, or sitting in a cobblegen for 1,000 hours. And then I have foraging, but I don't have a builder, and so it's 3 times slower than everyone else who already has a builder, and so that just makes it super demotivating to grind foraging. And then carpentry is just farming cocoa beans for like 400 hours, and then spending hours manually crafting that cocoa into enchanted cookies. Now, I know I said a lot of bad things about Stranded, but this isn't a video to say that Stranded is completely like a terrible game. I think that it's a good game mode concept, and it could definitely succeed if the admins were to fix the issues that I just stated, and the admins kept their word about updating the game. They said that they were going to update it around 3 months after release, and we're at 10 months now with no sign of an update. They haven't even talked about Stranded. They've just pretended it does not exist. I don't even care at this point if they add the things that they said they would add, like the dragons content and dungeon content. I just want them to fix all of the stupid issues that I mentioned so that the game can be playable and that it's an equal playing field for everyone and not just completely broken and stupid. I know I kind of ranted a bit in this video, but it's just kind of frustrating for me, who's number 3 in all of Stranded, and I've put in thousands and thousands of hours to just be completely neglected, and it just hurts.